couple of weeks ago I came up with an interesting concept. I will choose two warframes and see which one is better. No weapons, no helmet abilities and no extra modifiers. Just raw warframes doing what all warframes do best. Except for this one. I thought this idea was kind of interesting, and as far as I can tell it hasn't been done before. If you haven't seen the first episode of this little tournament, I kindly ask you to do that now. This will make it easier to understand this video. Some of you have actually seen the first episode of this tournament, which made me very happy. Here I would like to say thank you. One thing I noticed is that no one had the courage to say that this idea is very stupid. That made me even happier. I never considered myself to be an intellectual beast, but this idea is not that smart. I will explain why. In the first episode, I chose two warframes and they went on a 10-minute survival mission. The goal was simple. I wanted to see which warframe would destroy more enemies just by using their abilities. Really simple. So, where is the problem? Without going into much detail, the first contestants were Limbo and Revenant. I won't say which warframe won, you can see that for yourself. I decided to make a very nice table with all warframes and assign each warframe a number. I would then use a random number generator to pick which warframes would square off. There were some other rules, but I'll discuss them later. Let's say hypothetically in this episode one of the randomly chosen warframes is Mesa. That is absolutely fine. Let's say hypothetically the other randomly chosen warframe is Revenant again. Hopefully you see the problem here. The only parameter I thought was fair to judge the performance of the warframes was the number of enemies turned into angels. The problem is that in this example I already know how many enemies Revenant can kill. Enemies spawn randomly, and there are some other factors, but I just think there isn't a really 100% fair way to do this. I want to acknowledge that, for example, in one mission with a warframe you could get 250 kills, and in another run on that same mission you could get 270 kills. That is possible. As I make more and more episodes, I will know how many enemies each warframe can kill. Eventually, I will be able to predict the outcome without even doing the missions. So, how can I fix this problem? I can't. Not in the way I originally wanted to. The only reasonable course of action seems to be to just pick one warframe. Let me explain. Instead of doing a battle between two warframes each episode and seeing which one is better, I will pick one warframe and compare its results with every other warframe I tested before. Instead of a boxing match, it's going to be more like a King of the Hill scenario. Don't get me wrong, most of the rules established in episode 1 still apply. No weapons and stuff, the same mission, randomly chosen warframe, same mods, and obviously no hero. The only thing I will change from the first episode is that I will give every chosen warframe 3 tries and then choose the best results. I will also try to focus more on each warframe and its respective abilities. At some point this could easily turn into a pseudo-lazy guide. Who knows? As for Limbo and Revenant, their results will remain as they are. Let's quickly go over the rules again. As I said before, I will be picking one warframe. No pets, no helmet abilities and no extra stuff. I will obviously equip one weapon only because the game forces me to. I haven't really chosen which one, but it doesn't matter anyway. In the first episode I did survival on Sedna. I am sad to say that from this point on, the mission I will be doing in every episode will be Amarna. It might be a little boring, but for the sake of fairness, I think every warframe should do the same mission. I randomly chose Amarna in the first episode, so now I am stuck with it. So, 10 minutes on Amarna it is. Another fair thing to do is to equip warframes with the same set of mods. These mods are very general and nothing special, but I am not trying to deal with eidolons here. After all that said, there is one thing that is concerning me. The rule of using basic or basic.prime warframes. As you know, some warframes have their original form and their prime variants, while others don't have their prime versions yet. After doing some extensive research on our previous contestants, Limbo and Revenant, I concluded that the most significant differences between prime and basic versions are energy capacity, shield capacity, armor and extra polarity slots. Considering the lack of prime warframes, I have decided that from this point on I will be using only basic warframes. And yes, I know I used Revenant Prime and Limbo Prime earlier, but as I said, I will leave their results as they are. Honestly, the only thing that could make a difference is the extra energy, but I don't think it will be significant. With all of that said, I am ready to choose a warframe for testing. After using a state-of-the-art random number generator, I got 34. Based on that, I will be testing Nidus, an infestation given future. Is it weird that the first thing that came to my mind is the fact that Nidus can spread those pink cysts that you have inevitably seen on your warframe? This just shows how deep I am into this world. Nidus is a warframe inspired by the infestation. He is currently one of two warframes that do not have any shields. Instead of using shields to survive, Nidus has his passive ability. By using his abilities and killing enemies, Nidus gains stacks of mutation. If Nidus has at least 15 stacks of mutation, every time he would die, he can consume those stacks to essentially avoid death, becoming invulnerable and healing himself to 50% of health. A cool thing about this ability is that Nidus' physical appearance changes with the number of stacks he has. In addition to reviving Nidus, more stacks mean higher damage for some of his abilities and are used as a resource to cast his other abilities. His first ability is Virulence, which damages enemies in a straight line. Enemies hit with this ability generate stacks of mutation. Depending on the amount of mutation, the damage of this ability is increased. His second ability is Larva. Nidus basically just shoots out a larva and it pulls enemies in range into this very enjoyable rotating sphere. It is enjoyable for us, but not for anyone who is inside. Have you ever thought about how many bones have to be broken to do something like this? All of them. If you have and play with Nidus, you know this is his most satisfying ability. His third ability is called Parasitic Link. It can target your allies or enemies. Obviously, depending on your target, the ability works differently. If your target is your friend, you both gain ability strength. If your target is the enemy, some of the damage you take is transferred to that enemy. In order to cast this ability, you need 1 stack of mutation. His last ability is Ravenous. Nidus marks an area and spawns the second biggest worms I have seen in my life. These worms attack your enemies. This ability costs 3 stacks of mutation but also generates mutation. If you want to quickly generate mutation, you can use Ravenous, hit an enemy with Larva and then just spam Virulence. There are some other nuances to these abilities, but this isn't an in-depth guide analysis, so forgive me if I forgot or didn't mention something. This is just to give you a general idea of what Nidus can do and how he plays. Let's go equip our predetermined set of mods on Nidus. Since I am using basic warframes, one good thing is that I will always have free config slots. After equipping all mods, I realized I am or will be facing new problems during this endeavor. I won't sugarcoat it. I will have to make a lot of sacrifices to do this. Every basic warframe I have will need to have an Orokin reactor. I just can't put all the mods in without that. Also, I will have to use a couple of formas for the same reasons. Luckily, I am willing to make these sacrifices. After putting a forma in my Nidus and doing some leveling, I am ready for the test. I just want to point out my dedication to forma a mod slot so that I can put primed redirection, a mod that has absolutely zero effect because Nidus has 0 shields. This is what I call a smart idea. One thing I haven't mentioned before is that Virulence and Ravenous boost your energy acquisition. I am assuming here that with my mods and the combination of these two abilities, I won't have energy problems. With all that said, I think that Nidus is a very strong Warframe in this challenge, and I do think he will do very well. His abilities chain very well together, and I think he has a lot of potential. With that in mind, I set off for my first try. Remember, I will be running a Marna 3 times. Each run will last 10 minutes and I will pick the best result. If it isn't clear, that result is the number of enemies destroyed. Sadly, I won't show you the entire runs because honestly, they are very boring. They are not anything special. It's mostly me spamming the first ability. The first run went well. All of them did. One thing that immediately surprised me is how strong Virulence is. With this ability, I could easily one-shot all enemies. Most of the first run was exactly that. Just me spamming Virulence and occasionally setting down the worms and using larva. I wasn't too happy with this run, but I managed to get exactly 400 kills. The second run went better. Kinda. As this run progressed, I realized that larva can really increase my efficiency. I'm not gonna lie, until this point, I was really relying on Virulence alone, and I realized that using this ability to kill one enemy is not very cost effective. Sadly, I realized this kinda late, so I ended the second run with 413 kills. Slight improvement, but I had one more run to do. You shouldn't be surprised when I tell you that the third run was the best. From the beginning, I started pulling off larva Virulence combos. I added Ravenous into this combo and this time things were looking much better. I even managed to max my mutation stacks before the 8th minute. In the first two runs, it took me more than 9 minutes to do that. Also, keep in mind that in this run I was using stacks on Ravenous every chance I got. It was in the middle of this run when I realized that this run would be the best. I just knew it. So, how many kills did I get? I got 496 kills. I will say that I did not expect that. How does that compare to Limbo's and Revenant's scores? Sadly, Nidus wasn't able to take down our current champion. Difference is very little, but for now, the best Warframe in this type of challenge is Revenant. I will say that I am kinda disappointed. When I saw the number 496, I seriously thought Nidus will be the champion. This has nothing to do with the fact I forgot Revenant's score. I hope that you have enjoyed this and maybe even learned something. Before I say my goodbyes, I will leave you with a random Nidus fact. Nidus is a Latin word for nest, and it was used to describe a place where bacteria would multiply. You could also say it is the word used to describe a bacteria breeding ground. Guess it all makes sense now.